but they're just walking towards the window. Hey guys, Isabel here. Welcome back to Reelden. Today is another Dyad Discuss video with my friend Connor. Hello, Connor. Today we will be discussing Obi-Wan Kenobi, episode 4. Now, I actually, probably unpopular opinion, did like this episode. Definitely better than episode 1, I thought. But I am kind of glad that we're getting to an end of the whole Leia getting captured arc. Hopefully, because I do love Obi and Leia together, but I want to see some new settings, some new Leia keeps getting captured. Understandable, but also cut it off, let's do some new stuff. Yeah. So what did you think about this episode? Did you love it? Did you hate it? You didn't care about it?
I actually really liked it. Again, okay. Unpopular opinion. So I've seen it 3 times. I do agree. I've been seeing stuff going around. People are like, it kind of threw off the pacing a little bit because so far it was doing really well, in my opinion. So I kind of get that. But other than that, like I wasn't really caught off by any of it. I still think that it was an important arc to have, an important moment to have. I do wish there was a little bit more build up to, Obi-Wan kind of getting back in his groove, but I'm fine with what we got.
Yeah, I did like this episode for that reason, because the episode was pretty much, Obi-Wan finding his groove again. Sorry. I personally think it's about him finding something to like fight for. With Leia, I think he's finally found someone to, that he will open himself back up to the Force for, and that is like saving Leia. So I think this episode did a good job of showing that, when Leia's in danger, he's able to reach into the Force, and I think actually kind of get back to like his full, maybe not full, but like a good portion of his power back in the Force.
Because I know Deborah Chow has talked about the purpose of the show is to create a transition, to create an arc from the end of the Obi-Wan that we see at the end of Revenge of the Sith to Alec Guinness's Ben Kenobi, because they are themselves very different people. I think that's why I tend to like prequel Obi-Wan a lot more. Obviously, the times are more or less a little bit better.
Speaking of Anakin, or rather Darth Vader, I know there are people out there, people close to us and people also who watch my channel and stuff like that, who I think they wanted this series to really just be Vader and Obi-Wan like hashing it out, which I will go as far to say as like, would I like to see a bit more connection between Anakin and Obi-Wan, like more suffering on their part? I think it'd be interesting to see that. Yeah, sure. But it doesn't, if you're trying to keep everything continuous, it doesn't make sense for Obi-Wan and Darth Vader to have all these confrontations and meetings before A New Hope. Because in A New Hope, when Ben and Vader, they're on the ship together, and Vader's like, I feel a presence I haven't felt in a very long time. Like, if you keep putting Vader and Obi-Wan together in this series, it kind of makes that meeting in A New Hope feel less like sincere, and it's not as like meaningful,
Yeah, we are exactly on the same page. So go ahead and comfort me, but the one thing that I actually didn't want was a fight and a big confrontation, because I think exactly the way you do, I think it would diminish their meeting in episode 4, and episode 4 or the originals in general. The one thing that I think those films do really well is they really handle emotional confrontations really well, instead of big explosions and starfighter battles and lightsaber duels. Although I think they have a good balance of those as well. I think if you wanted to see like all these moments of Anakin and Obi-Wan together during the Clone Wars. There is a show for that.
It's called the Clone Wars.
It's called the Clone Wars, and it ran for 7 seasons. So if if you really want that, there is a lot of content to go around, and it covers almost every single base. There is the new book that came out, Brotherhood. There are the Anakin and Obi-Wan comics that came out a couple years ago. So there's plenty of stuff out there. And I think all of that has kind of been covered. And not to mention, there's your prequel trilogy. There's a whole trilogy dedicated to it. So the show is called Obi-Wan Kenobi. I agree with Kathleen and Deborah when I've heard them say you can't have an Obi-Wan story without Vader. I just think that you do have to tread a little lightly just because stuff has already been written.
And I mean, like you and I have been reiterating for these discussions, this series is not about Obi-Wan and Vader fighting each other and connecting with each other. It's really about Obi-Wan accepting what happened in the past and
becoming Obi-Wan again.
Yeah, becoming Obi-Wan, becoming the Ben that we see in A New Hope, who's, bright, hopeful. He's got his wits about him, Yeah.
He's old, but he's willing to at least encourage a new generation.
I also think there are some who, again, people close to us and also people who have commented on my channel. I feel like they're kind of waiting for these big moments to happen. And I think one of the big moments that they want to happen is like Leia really showing her Force sensitiveness, especially when she was talking with Reva, and like, maybe like Reva would notice it or something like that. But I'm like, yeah, that would be cool. But here's the thing with writing a prequel, you're kind of confined to your storyline based on the originals that have already come before it. So literally no one knows that Leia is Force sensitive. I don't think Leia even knows herself that she's Force sensitive until like the very last couple minutes of The Empire Strikes Back. Yeah. When, Luke reaches out with the Force and Leia hears him. And literally Leia wasn't even trained until after The Last Jedi for like 2 minutes, but that's something we can discuss another time. So like, there shouldn't be big moments where Leia shows her Force sensitiveness. These hints that we have, I think are enough.
Because she doesn't come to terms with it until Return of the Jedi, when Luke has that heart-to-heart with her, and she's like, I guess I've always known somehow. I don't know how, but I've always known. It's always like been in the back of her mind. And that kind of is more or less how the Force works. But I think, she's like just enough. And I think with Reva not being able to tell that she's Force sensitive because she's being resisted by a 10-year-old.
Yeah.
We've seen Reva is incredibly powerful, but she's so ambitious and she can get so hyper focused. And a lot of this is like one of the downsides to being like a key dark side wielder is she is so hyper focused on whatever it is that her mission is, that there are these little details that she'll miss. To my point, that's kind of where the arrogance of the dark side will cloud. So it's just something that I think people should remember.
Speaking of Reva, I have a question for you, because I got a vibe. Obviously, Reva, willing to torture a 10-year-old, not the best. But I kind of feel like she was holding back just a tad, because she gave her many choices for Reva to like not have to torture her. And I was wondering if you got that vibe too, that Reva was like holding back a smidge with Leia.
I definitely think she was at some point, but after a while she started to get frustrated and she's like, you know what, this isn't worth it. She's 10. I have a job to do. But I also, it kind of allows her to be caught in this like emotional moment with herself, because she was probably close to the same age, or we're assuming, was probably the same age as Leia. So there's just a little bit of her remembering what it was like.
I think that's why I do like her character a lot, because it's not big or grand, but there are these little subtle hints that she is having a lot of emotional turmoil. And I like those kinds of characters.
Yeah.
But speaking of the Fortress Inquisitorius, I was shook when I saw all those like frozen corpses. And one of them was Terra Sinube, which is also a Clone Wars character.
Probably.
I think it was like, I wonder, because they showed a close-up of two women in there, and the one of the I guess I don't know what he is, like a pilot or something, but he said his wife was taken. So I wonder if one of those two women was his wife.
Oh, possibly. I didn't think about that.
I didn't either, but I was like, why would they show a close-up of those two women? Because I didn't recognize them. Yeah. But then there was that youngling in there. I kind of wonder if that was one of Reva's like friends,
Possibly.
And he's forever entombed in time, frozen in that amber liquid.
I wonder if she knows.
How could you not? Because you have to walk through there to get to the torture chamber anyway.
Because isn't she kind of new?
Riva? Not that
compared
new
to the rest of them.
I mean, she's the third sister, so doesn't she come before the fifth brother?
I don't know if the Inquisitorius titles are permanent. So I don't know if when the second sister dies, does the second sister title get replaced? If there was a third brother or sister beforehand, does that title get replaced? I don't know. I don't actually know the rules of Inquisitorius.
I don't know either. But based on your comment and one of our other discussions, how Vader hates them, it doesn't like replacing them, I would say no. But it is interesting because if you look in past episodes, when they're in like the main like Inquisitor headquarter office, whatever, on like the side, there's like lightsabers lined up on display. And so it's kind of like,
I didn't notice that.
Yeah, I rewatched the whole thing and then I was looking in the background a lot. So I was like,
noticed that.
Yeah, there's all these lightsabers just like on display, and now we can correlate the corpses and they probably belonged to some of those.
Interesting.
Okay, so in this episode, like I said, I didn't mind it, but if I could change one thing for me personally with like a creative viewpoint, not a criticism at all, but just like my own creative difference, I think it was too easy for the people to fly in on their ships, shove like 3 people in the back of this small little
no speeder.
Yeah, and then zoom away. Like I get that because Wade died, it shows like the stakes and how these people who I'm assuming are probably going to become like the rebels. Like it shows like, hey, they're going to kill you, so you got to stand up for yourself. Like I know it shows that, but I think it was too easy. One thing that writers and like movie and TV show makers should try to stay away from is getting your characters out of trouble through like convenience. Yeah, you can get
it was definitely like a Deus Ex Machina kind of a deal. I don't remember them saying anything about like encryption codes getting through, because there's, as we saw from Fallen Order, which you've completed, there's like an entire Imperial blockade around the planet because it's in like the heart of dark side Imperial space,
right?
So how did they get through that? And I know it's kind of like nitpicky, but like how would they get through that? First time you had Tala and her encryption codes and her chain codes, whatever, and they follow the exact plan that Cal and Seer did.
Right.
I can't tell if I like really like it or otherwise.
I think it's like a cool Easter egg.
Do.
Yeah.
I think I do.
Yeah. Okay. I guess that is a little weird. I don't know. I don't think they really. I think we're supposed to assume that at the moment there's no blockade for some reason. But also, how many people have played? I'm assuming a lot, of course. But like, how many people have played Fallen Order and remember that there is a blockade?
You would kind of assume that there would be something there anyway.
I don't have too much else to say because I think it was a slower episode. but I don't think it was not important. Like, I don't think it was a filler episode.
Oh, I did want to say something in regards to JFO.
Okay.
So I have seen, or like some people are upset that that whole sequence was kind of cookie cutter, same scenario. And I know one thing that people are confused about. They're like, well, how come, I guess everything that Seer and Cal did was for nothing? Because they went through and they made some pretty significant damage. But again, I think people are forgetting there's a 5-year difference, but they're also the Empire. So they're going to rebuild.
Yeah. In George Lucas's words, there's a reason why all the Sith ships look like they're from the factory conveyor belt, because they are. They have the resources.
So she's probably going to cut this out, but we were talking about a kind of subtle reference to Rebels that I remember. She does not, but that reminds me that this show, also going back in regards to flashbacks and stuff like that, like Clone Wars flashbacks just in live action. One thing that I think this show is doing well, and I hope it continues to do well, is it's actually not doing a whole lot in isolating an audience that hasn't indulged in all of the expanded universe, whether it be the shows or the books or the games. I think it's very important, obviously, to understand the main films, or at least the prequels. But like, if all you've seen are episodes 1, 2, and 3, and you like vaguely know of the originals, and this is like your next stepping stone, I think it actually does a pretty good job at being just that and not isolating the audience.
Yeah, fair. So that's why, like, I think it would be cool if I did see it, but I don't have to see it. And I'm not upset if I don't see it. Did you have anything specific on the episode itself? Like, did you think it was a slower episode, or are you like, because I'm fine with the episode as is.
I didn't think it was slow at all, actually. I thought it moved fairly quickly. I think it was just the way that it made the steps that it did just felt a little funky. But it's also a little bit reminiscent of, if you really want to make that connection, it's a little bit similar to what Obi-Wan is going through. He's kind of stumbling back into shape. He's back in some form of Jedi robes. He's back to using his lightsaber and going out of his way to help someone else.
No, I do like how I feel like it also kind of connects when they were in that safe house on Mapuzo. They're in that safe house, and then Obi-Wan reads the Quinlan Voss message about, not always having to use your eyes to see whatever the message was verbatim. And we kind of see that when he's freeing Leia. He turns off the lights, and instead of using his lightsaber to see where he's going, like he did when him and Vader are, facing off for the first time, he actually uses his senses and maneuvers through the dark, and he only turns on his lightsaber to like attack the troopers who are guarding Leia. So I did like that. We're starting to see that that aspect, and I'm really excited because I love that sort of things, like, using your other senses to fight. Like, I love seeing all that stuff. So I'm happy to see it in this episode.
What did you think about Reva getting another chance with Vader? Did you think she was gonna get it, or?
I was, of course I was like, Vader's angry, but seeing how Reva has maneuvered herself in the past episodes, I was like, she's gonna get out of it somehow. She's gonna, find a way to appease him somehow. I don't know how she's gonna say it, how she's gonna do it, but I think both Vader and Reva at this point are very obsessed with the idea of catching Obi-Wan. And therefore, I think both of their judgments are a bit clouded. That's my opinion on that.
Do you think, and this isn't necessarily just a yes or no question, do you think that she constantly, aside from plot armor, do you think that story-wise, she continuously gets the opportunity for second chances because he sees some of himself in her? Or do you think it's more because of his obsession with Obi-Wan that on this rare occasion because he knows that she is able to get them so close that he's willing to make this rare exception?
I would think it's more his obsession, because doesn't Vader like hate himself and hate Anakin Skywalker? So I would think if it was solely on someone reminding him of himself, I think would actually even make him more angry and more likely to actually have, ended Riva where she stood. So I think it is, they're both obsessed, and so that's why Riva is making all these choices that get her in a lot of trouble. But then also I think it's also why Vader is like probably not as like brutal as he usually is, because he was ready. He walked in and he was ready.
He did. There was the big dramatic Skywalker style entrance too.
Yeah, and it's kind of like, again, I do like a lot of the cinematic stuff in here because Vader's in this big suit, he doesn't have a lot of facial emotions or even a lot of emotions we can see unless he does something with his body language. So like the fire in his eyes from the actual fire in episode like 3, like that's his like uncontrollable fury. But then when you look at his mask in this episode, he's surrounded by like cold water, and so that's like his composure coming back to himself.
They do a really good job, and I know they have consultants for like Vader. They have Vader movement consultants, but I think that goes to show the amount of detail that is going into this.
One thing I do think is funny though about Vader is no matter if he's running, if he's angry, if he's sad, his breathing does not change at all. Like there's, because like when you run, like you breathe more, there is no change.
So it does it should actually, because it's more notable in the originals, and there's like a brief moment in Rogue One where his breathing skips a beat when he turns to say something to somebody, and like it's a rough subject.
It's
I know in the games I know in the games when you play as Vader, when you run, the breathing increases, so it actually should do that. But if it's not that if it's not enough to warrant him actually building up this much like physical anxiety,
I know it's like it doesn't change enough, I think, for normal like human breathing patterns, whenever people do different things. I think it's just funny.
I think there's like a threshold, probably
he is more machine than men, so
that's true, to quote the man himself.
Yeah, I also think perhaps maybe the machine breathes for him, so maybe it's at like a set.
Yeah. Well, it's for sure.
Yeah, so that's why probably like it's at like a set breathing pattern, because the machine does it for him.
We're getting into Vader anatomy here.
So now we just have 2 more episodes. How do you think, because Lola's a tracker now, which breaks my heart, but how do you think that's going to go down? Obviously we are going to get a big battle between Obi-Wan and Vader, but how do you think it's all going to work out? Because I want a Riva and Obi-Wan showdown, and I want
do too. I want that more than a Vader and Obi-Wan.
So do I,
especially because Obi-Wan is starting to get back into his place. I wanted to see, I thought it was going to happen in episode 2. I thought it was going to be a very brief swatting of swords.
I want a 5th brother and Riva. I want Riva to put that 5th brother in his place.
The fourth sister and 5th brother kind of don't do a whole lot, so it would be nice to see them do something other than being really stupid. I know that's like from the 5th brother. I know that's not really out of character necessarily.
Yeah.
But it was just something I was thinking about. But that whole scene where he's hiding her in his coat, and I made a comment. About that, and I said the fact that they got through so many Imperial officers and troopers and 2 Inquisitors and almost got away with it is everything.
It's everything.
It's everything. And I just thought that was so funny. But like, yeah, these two Inquisitors, I also think that's to answer my question that I posed earlier. I think that's why Reva gets a lot of second chances, because she is effective.
She's a
What
go-getter.
she's doing, it's not necessarily the most thought out plan, but it is one way or another effective.
Yeah.
Because these guys are just kind of walking around and he's not doing anything.
I think the fifth brother is like that younger brother who, like, it's his turn on the Xbox, but Reva won't let him. And he's like,
it's
Dad,
it's
Vader.
Giving Lord Vader, it's my turn to be on the Xbox. Reva's been on it for too long. Yeah, they really don't do much. And I was thinking about this last night, where Wade is flying away and they're chasing after them, and he goes, stop them, do something. And it's like, you're force sensitive too.
Yeah,
you could really carry your own weight too and not make Reva do everything.
And he wants to be the Grand Inquisitor.
She was the one deflecting laser fire, not them. She was the one that threw the
fuselage
box,
the fuel cells. I thought Obi-Wan and Reva were gonna get into it at this, like, and he was gonna defend Leia and Tala. That's what I thought was gonna happen. And then the fighters flew in, and I was like, it's a bit convenient. Personally, my thoughts. Like, you can get in trouble with convenience, but you shouldn't. You should let the character's own ingenuity get themselves out of trouble. Yeah. Just my own personal thoughts. Still liked the episode. Not really a big deal, honestly. But yeah, like it felt
the
weird,
latter half of part 3, as we discussed last time, I feel weird about it.
Yeah, there are definitely a few like background CGI / like editing things that make it a little bit weird, but I'm not really complaining about those.
oh, in this one?
Yeah, but even episode 3, because I know you and I talked about how we thought that was edited a bit weird. Like, something about it just made it seem a little bit weird to us.
It's more the cuts. It's more the cuts and the angles that were chosen to be used, because I know they'll have at least one other one. They're not going to have just one shot.
Yeah, obviously.
Unless like that is, unless Miss Chow is like, this is the shot, they're going to have a couple different angles to work with.
I think she's a really good
it's only all in here. Yeah. Well, like I think we talked about her style, and I think that worked really well in this episode, especially because you have a lot of one-on-one confrontation. Mm-hmm. But it's dialogic and emotional confrontation as opposed to an actual fight scene.
Yeah, so she definitely wants you to be in the moment with them.
I was going to make a note about the CGI and how like it's not weird because it's Star Wars.
Oh, I know in this episode when
like a dialogue too,
when Obi-Wan is hiding Leia under his cloak and they're marching out, there's like a little platoon of stormtroopers, but it's just kind of funny because if you look closely, they're just walking towards the window. Just gonna go look at the sea life.
It's like that stormtrooper in A New Hope who bonks his head walking in the door because the door didn't fully open all the way.
Yes. So it's just little things like that that make it weird.
Goofy. That's what I'm saying about the goof. Like it's been goofy since 1977.
Exactly.
If you have a problem with it, get out. If you're here to enjoy it like the rest of us,
I'm just glad we're getting Star Wars content.
Yeah, welcome. Please welcome. Like, point these things. I didn't know that, so I'm gonna go back now and I'm gonna look for that.
Yeah, there's like 15 of them, probably 10, but they're just walking towards the window. Like, yeah, they're gonna go look at the sea life, the storm raging outside.
Yeah, even though the alarms are going off, there's a potential Jedi running around. We're just gonna go look at some fish.
Mm-hmm. And I think it's just the way that like
who didn't want to show up to work that day.
Yeah, and also when I think it's when Tala is walking into like try and get into the building, there's just like a weird shot where like an officer random has really no importance, but he walks like full center frame. And I think that's so it's like
is that the one who is in the long trench coat who just like walks directly in front of her?
Yeah, it's him, which I understand. Like,
so
you're setting
that's
up
weird blocking.
You're setting up the trench coat. I understand that, but like, it's just little things like that I think make people like feel weird about it, and then they take out their anger, and I'm like, but it's goofy, like, and it's something I don't really care about.
Yeah.
Like, it's not something
Did
that's
you
gonna
see
make or
it? Like,
break.
have you not seen the 2011 Blu-ray special edition? Like,
Oh
that's literally
no.
all that is.
No, I
And
think it was in, I think it
Tala's
was,
fight choreography.
oh no, Tala, when she is literally fighting this officer in a room with other people in it and nobody reacted. I'm
So
like,
that was the only thing I was actually like confused about, because I'm like, is no one else gonna react?
so it's just things like that where I'm like, interesting, but not enough to make me angry about an episode. But
Like,
it's
it had
just,
me more confused the second time, because first time I'm like absorbing it all,
yeah.
you
The
know?
first time you think she went somewhere else, but she didn't. She literally went like behind a pillar and is like beating up this guy.
Yeah, it's like she hasn't even left the room.
Yeah, she hasn't even left the room yet. And I'm like, okay, interesting.
And you hear him
Okay.
being choked out. Yeah, that actually did confuse me when I went back to watch it the second time. I'm like, there are other people in the house.
And it's a
Like,
silent room too. It's like a library. It's like the Sith library. Like,
yeah, yeah. And she's just like, oh my God, they're hiding so many things. They're hiding so many things. And she just whispers louder.
well, guys, that has been our discussion on episode 4 of Obi-Wan Kenobi. Connor, thank you for joining me as always.
Thank you for having me.
Of course, always fun to talk Star Wars with you. But guys, be sure to like on the video, comment what is your favorite goofy Star Wars moment that you have seen or found. Let us know in the comments. And be sure to subscribe to the channel, hit that notification bell so you never miss Star Wars reaction videos as well as Star Wars discussion videos. But guys, that's got for you today. So thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.